Before we get started, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a moment where your world feels like it's quietly changing and you didn't even see it coming? If you've ever felt that, I'd love to hear about it. Comment down below where you're listening from, or if something like this has ever happened to you, because this story might feel a little like your own. I still remember the day my daughter called me. Her voice was calm, but there was something in it that made me pause. She said, "Mom, we're going tomorrow. I sold your beach house." For a second, I didn't say anything. I just let the words sink in. My mind raced. That beach house, the one my husband and I had spent decades building memories in, the one I had imagined my grandchildren running around in, sold? Just like that? I didn't know what to say, so I laughed quietly, the kind of nervous laugh you do when you're trying not to cry. And then she added, almost casually, "But don't worry, Mom. Everything will be fine." Fine. Those words hung in the air, and I realized she had no idea what she had just unleashed in my heart. I spent that night thinking about every summer, every birthday party, every quiet morning I had watched the sun rise over that water. I thought about my husband's old fishing rod leaning in the corner, the shell collection we had started together, and the smell of salt mixed with sunscreen that always made me feel at home. And now, all of it was gone, or about to be. I kept thinking about calling her back, saying something, anything. But what could I say that wouldn't sound like complaining? I wanted to tell her that it hurt, that the house wasn't just wood and nails. It was our life. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. And that quiet, that's when everything started to shift. When the morning came, I packed a small bag. I told myself it was just a visit, just a trip, nothing more. But my stomach felt heavy with anticipation. I walked through the rooms I had lived in for so many years, touching the edges of counters, the frames of photos, as if I could somehow keep them with me in my hands. And then I left. The drive to her house was silent. My daughter's voice on the phone had been calm, but now, in person, I could see the tension behind her smile. She was trying to be cheerful, to reassure me that everything was fine, but the way she avoided looking at my face told me she knew she was hiding something. She wanted me to see the happy ending she had planned, but I could already feel the storm beneath it. When we finally arrived, I saw the new owners waiting. They were kind, polite, smiling at me like I was supposed to be excited about their presence. And I smiled too. I wanted to be polite, to not make a scene. But inside, I felt like I was losing a piece of my soul. As they walked me through the house, showing me how they planned to redecorate, I nodded, said the right words, even complimented them on a few choices. And all the while, I kept thinking about my husband, about the first time we had come to that beach, just the two of us, carrying nothing but dreams and towels. I could almost hear his laughter echoing in the hallways, and it made me choke back tears. That night, when I was alone at her house, I finally let myself feel it. I sat by the window, listening to the ocean waves, imagining the home that had been mine, that had been ours. And I realized something. It wasn't just about a house. It was about letting go, about realizing that sometimes people make choices that hurt you, and sometimes you have to accept it, even when it's almost unbearable. And that's when I started to understand her decision. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She thought she was helping, moving things along, keeping life simple. But in her simplicity, she had overlooked the heartstrings she was tugging at, the memories she was erasing. And yet, I loved her. I wanted to forgive her, to hold on to that love, even as my heart ached. I stayed up late that night, writing a letter I never sent. I wrote about my childhood in that house, my memories with my husband, and the little things that made it special. I wrote not to blame, not to scold, but to remember. And as I wrote, I realized that memory is not something you can sell or buy. It lives. The next few days were quiet, almost too quiet. My daughter went about her routines, making meals, tidying up, talking to me with a cheerfulness that felt just a little forced. I watched her, noticing the little things, the way she paused before speaking, the way her hands fidgeted while she tried to make everything seem normal. I wanted to reach out, to say, "It's okay, I'm not upset," but something held me back. I wanted her to feel safe, to know that despite my sadness, I still loved her. Her husband joined us a couple of times. He was polite, warm, but there was a subtle tension in the air whenever he walked in. I sensed that he too felt the weight of what had happened, even if he didn't understand it fully. The house was no longer mine, and every corner seemed to whisper memories that he could never replace. And yet, I forced myself to smile, to nod, to be the grandmother and mother she hoped I would be. I took long walks along the beach, letting the sound of waves soothe me. The air was salty and cool, carrying the faint scent of sunscreen from the past summers I had spent there. I remembered the first time my husband had brought me here, how we had walked barefoot in the sand, laughing at how cold the water was. Those memories were mine alone now, tucked safely inside me, untouchable by anyone else. One afternoon, my daughter and I sat on the porch. She tried to make small talk, asking about the old photos, the furniture, the things we had left behind. I answered lightly, smiling as I spoke, but my heart was heavy. And then, in a quiet moment, she said, almost hesitantly, "Mom, I didn't realize how much it meant to you. I just thought it was a house." I looked at her, my eyes soft, and I nodded. "It's more than a house," I said gently. "It's a part of us, and that's something no one can ever sell." Her eyes glistened, and I could see that she was beginning to understand. But I also knew that understanding wouldn't erase the ache completely. The days went on, and slowly, small tensions began to show themselves. There were little misunderstandings, quiet disagreements about how things should be handled. I noticed that every time a decision was made about the house or its contents, my heart would tighten, my mind spinning with memories I couldn't share out loud. One evening, as we were clearing some old furniture from the porch, she mentioned that she wanted to donate some of the items to charity. I froze. The thought of seeing pieces of our life, of my husband's things, given away to strangers, it hurt more than I expected. But I didn't say anything immediately. I wanted to see if I could manage it, to see if I could find some peace in letting go. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked, noticing my hesitation. I smiled, but it was a fragile thing. Yes, I'm fine. Just remembering some old times, I said softly. She nodded, satisfied, and we continued our work. But inside, a small storm was growing. I realized that letting go of a house was one thing. Letting go of memories, of pieces of my life, of the tangible reminders of love and laughter, that was something else entirely. And I wasn't ready. The rising tension became more evident when her husband suggested they renovate the kitchen. It was practical, he said, necessary even. But every time he talked about knocking down walls, changing layouts, or repainting, I felt a pang in my chest. The house I had known for decades was transforming before my eyes, and I was powerless to stop it. I remember one night, sitting alone in the living room, listening to the sound of the waves. I thought about calling my daughter and telling her how I felt, but I couldn't. I wanted her to feel that she had made the right choice, that she wasn't hurting me. And yet, my heart ached with a quiet intensity that was hard to bear. And then, one morning, the real turning point arrived. I woke up to find a stack of letters on the kitchen counter. They were from the new owners, politely explaining how they intended to rearrange the house, sell some furniture, and donate the rest. I picked up one of the letters, my hands trembling slightly. I read the words, carefully written and kind, but every sentence felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I could hear my daughter moving around the kitchen, humming softly, unaware of my turmoil. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell her to stop all of this, to undo it. But I didn't. I simply folded the letter, placed it back on the counter, and walked outside. The sun was shining, but it felt muted, as if the world knew that something inside me was breaking. I sat on the porch, staring at the ocean, and allowed myself to feel the sadness fully. I remembered the first time my husband had taught me to swim in these waters, how we had held each other up, how we had laughed when I splashed him accidentally. Those memories, precious and unrepeatable, were mine alone now. And in that quiet moment, I made a decision. I would let the house go. I would accept that it was no longer mine, that life moved forward, and that people we love sometimes make choices we don't understand. But I also promised myself something else. I would not let go of the memories. They were mine, untouchable, safe inside my heart. The next few days were different. I began to see my daughter in a new light. I saw her care, her intentions, her desire to make things right in her own way. We talked more, shared small laughs, and slowly the tension began to ease. I realized that the house was not the end of our story. It was a chapter, yes, but not. Over the next week, the subtle tensions began to grow. It wasn't anything dramatic, no shouting, no arguments, but it was there, in the quiet spaces between us. I noticed it in the way my daughter would glance at me before making a decision, as if measuring whether I would approve or not. I noticed it in the way the new owners would tiptoe around the house, treating everything carefully, politely, but not as if it truly belonged to them. And I noticed it in myself, in the way my heart would tighten whenever a familiar corner was touched or a familiar object moved. One afternoon, she suggested we go through the attic. She said she wanted to organize some of the old boxes, perhaps donate or discard what we didn't need. I followed her slowly, my steps hesitant. The attic was filled with decades of memories, photo albums, boxes of letters, old toys, my husband's fishing gear, and my mother's knitting baskets. It all smelled like time itself, dusty, warm, and full of echoes of laughter long gone. She opened a box near the far corner. "Mom, is this yours?" she asked, holding up a small, worn journal. I recognized it immediately. It was my husband's, filled with notes he had written over the years, some for work, some just to me. Little thoughts about the house, about the life we had built together. I felt my throat tighten. "Yes," I whispered. "That's his." She hesitated, looking at me. "Do you want to keep it?" I paused. I wanted to say yes, to cling to it like a lifeline. But then I saw her eyes. There was care there, not greed, not malice. I nodded, slowly. "Yes, I'd like to keep it." We continued in silence for a while, opening boxes, sorting through items. Some things I could part with easily. Old papers, magazines, mismatched utensils. But others, the items that carried memories of birthdays, anniversaries, lazy summer mornings, I held close, tucked away safely. And with each box we opened, I could feel the tug of war inside me. I wanted to let go. I wanted to be understanding. But my heart ached. Later that night, I sat in my room, thinking about the house, about my daughter, and about the choices we all make in life. I realized that this rising conflict wasn't about her or the new owners. It was about me. It was about my attachment, my fear of losing the past, my struggle to accept change. And yet, even knowing this, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that had settled quietly in my chest. The true turning point came the next morning. I had gone to the kitchen to make tea when I noticed something odd on the dining table. There were papers, official-looking, neatly stacked. My daughter walked in behind me, humming softly, unaware of what I had found. "Mom, those are just some forms from the new owners," she said casually. "They want to finalize some things before the weekend, nothing serious." I picked up the top sheet. It was a document, clear, legal, and complete, confirming the sale of the house. My hands trembled slightly as I read it. Everything was final. There was no going back. And in that moment, I realized something important. Rising conflict, heartbreak, and betrayal are part of life. How we respond, how we carry love in the midst of loss, that's what truly matters. The day the new owners officially moved in was the day everything hit me all at once. I woke up early, unable to sleep. The house, the home I had known for decades, would no longer belong to us. I walked through the rooms slowly, touching the walls, running my fingers along the wooden banister, lingering on the windowsills where my husband had once placed little plants. Every corner held a memory, a story, a laugh, a whisper of the past. When my daughter arrived, she seemed cheerful, even relieved. She tried to lighten the mood, talking about how the new owners would take care of the house, how they planned to bring new life into it. But I couldn't respond. I just nodded, smiling faintly, while inside a storm of grief and disbelief raged. Then, in the kitchen, I saw it. The first act that truly broke something inside me. A man and a woman, the new owners, were carefully removing a set of chairs from the dining table. Chairs that had been there for over 30 years. Chairs that had held countless family dinners, birthdays, arguments, and celebrations. My hands went cold. I couldn't stop myself. "Wait," I said softly, my voice trembling. Those, those were ours. We used them for decades. My husband, he... My words faltered. I could barely speak. My daughter stepped forward, gently placing her hand on my shoulder. "Mom, I know. I know it's hard, but it's already decided. There's nothing we can do now." I felt a tear slide down my cheek, not out of anger, but out of the overwhelming realization that this place, this home, these objects, these memories, they were leaving me. My heart ached as if it were being squeezed in slow, relentless hands. I stepped outside, letting the wind hit my face. I sat on the porch, looking at the ocean, watching the waves crash, and I realized how deeply attached I had been to a place, to tangible pieces of life. I had always thought memories were safe because they lived inside me, but seeing them physically removed, I felt that part of me being carried away too. Hours later, I wandered into what used to be our family room. The furniture was gone, the pictures replaced, the shelves empty. It was still a house, but it wasn't home anymore. And in that moment, I broke down completely. Not in anger, not in accusation, but in grief. Quiet, deep, uncontrollable grief. I cried for my husband, for my life, for the laughter and love that would never return in the same form. I remember my daughter coming in. She hesitated at the doorway, unsure whether to comfort me or leave me to my sadness. I didn't speak. I just let her see me, raw and vulnerable. And I think that was the turning point for both of us. She understood then, in a way she hadn't before, the depth of my attachment, the weight of the memories she had unknowingly disrupted. That evening, I sat on the porch again, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the horizon. I thought about the first time my husband had held my hand as we walked along this beach, about the children's laughter echoing off the walls, about the quiet mornings sipping coffee and watching the sunrise. All of it gone, or at least gone in the form I had known. And then something shifted. A quiet realization crept over me. I could not stop change. I could not keep the house, the possessions, or even the past. But I could carry the memories, the love, and the lessons with me. The house was sold. That was final. But my life, my story, my heart, they were still mine. Over the next few days, I began to adjust. I walked through the house, now transformed by the new owners, with a gentleness I hadn't thought possible. I noticed the care they took, the little touches they added, and slowly, a strange sense of peace began to settle. The house was no longer mine, but it was still being loved. My daughter and I talked long into the night, really talked, for the first time in years. She shared why she had made the decision, how she thought it would help, how she wanted to simplify life for her family. I listened, really listened, and for the first time, I understood fully, not just her reasoning, but her heart. I realized then that the pain of the turning point, the grief, the heartbreak, the sense of betrayal was necessary. It forced me to face my emotions, to process them, to understand that love and loss are intertwined, and that sometimes the people we care about most will make choices that hurt us unintentionally. It was in this quiet, reflective moment that I began to forgive. Not because I had to, not because it erased the grief, but because forgiveness allowed me to reclaim my peace. I could still honor the past, still cherish the memories, and still love my daughter deeply, even when our perspectives clashed. The house was gone, but the lessons it carried, the life it represented, and the love that had filled it remained. And in the silence of that evening, listening to the waves, I felt my heart slowly opening to acceptance. In the days that followed, I found myself noticing the small things again, the way the sunlight fell across the floor in the morning, the faint smell of salt in the air, the laughter of children playing on the beach, carrying memories of the past, but also promises of new ones. Slowly, I began to feel lighter, as if the heaviness that had gripped my heart was easing just a little. My daughter and I began spending time together differently. We cooked meals side by side, sharing stories about the old house, about my husband, about summers that would never come back. And in those stories, I found healing. Telling her about the memories and hearing her genuinely listen and care reminded me that love does not disappear with possessions. Love endures. One afternoon, we went through some old photographs. I laughed softly at some of them. My husband with his fishing hat tilted crookedly, the children covered in sand from head to toe, family dinners with too much food on the table. My daughter smiled too, and I realized how much she had grown, how much she was trying to understand, and how much she cared. That understanding, that shared acknowledgement of the past, felt like a balm on my heart. I also began writing again, letters, notes, and little reminders of my life in that house. I didn't intend to send them to anyone. I wrote for myself, to preserve the memories, to honor the life my husband and I had created together. Every word helped me let go a little more. The house might be gone, but my life, my experiences, and my love were still intact. They were mine to keep. Occasionally, I would walk through the house with the new owners, sharing small stories about the rooms, the furniture, the gardens. They listened politely, even warmly, and I realized that they were caring for the home in their own way. I could see that my memories were safe in my heart, and in a strange way, it brought me comfort to know that this place I loved so deeply was being appreciated and looked after. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, my daughter and I sat together on the porch. She reached over and took my hand. "Mom," she said softly, "I'm sorry I didn't understand before. I thought I was helping, but I see now it was harder than I realized." I smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "I know, sweetheart. I know you are trying your best. That's all anyone can ever ask." It was in that quiet exchange that I understood the true meaning of resolution. Life would never be exactly the same. The house was gone, the past could not be reclaimed. But the love between us, the bond we shared, and the memories we carried, those could never be taken away. Over the following weeks, I noticed myself laughing more, sleeping better, and even feeling a sense of excitement for the future. I began imagining new traditions with my daughter and grandchildren, ways to create joy and meaning in different spaces. Life was continuing, changing, and evolving, and I wanted to be part of it, not trapped in the past. The resolution wasn't instant, nor was it complete. There were still moments when I would think of the old house, when grief would touch my heart like a gentle shadow. But those moments became softer over time, less piercing, more reflective. They reminded me of what I had loved and lost, yes, but they also reminded me of the love that remained. I realized then that true peace comes not from holding on to what is gone, but from embracing what remains. From cherishing memories, valuing relationships, and finding ways to carry love forward. The house had been a vessel for our life, but it was never the life itself. That life lived in me, in my family, and in every act of love we shared. And slowly, day by day, the ache in my heart eased. I learned to accept the changes, to forgive, and to appreciate the resilience of love. I knew that my daughter had acted out of care, even if it hurt. And I knew that in this quiet understanding, we had both grown. As the weeks passed, I found a sense of calm I hadn't felt in a long time. The house, though no longer ours, no longer held me hostage in grief. I could remember it fondly without pain, speak of it without tears, and honor my husband's memory with love instead of longing. I realized that holding on to objects, possessions, or even places could never replace the love and experiences we carried inside us. That love was mine to keep forever. One quiet morning, I walked along the beach alone. The sun was just rising, casting soft pink and golden hues over the water. The waves lapped gently at the shore, and I breathed deeply, feeling the salt air fill my lungs. I thought about the journey I had been on, from the shock of the phone call to the grief of seeing the house leave, to the slow, patient process of understanding and forgiveness. Each step had been painful, yes, but each step had brought me closer to peace. I remembered a moment with my daughter that had stayed with me. She had hesitated before asking, "Mom, are you really okay?" And in that moment, I had realized that she needed my acceptance as much as I needed to forgive her. Life often asks us to carry burdens we never expected, and sometimes the people we love most unintentionally become the ones who teach us the hardest lessons. I thought about my husband, too. I imagined him watching the waves, smiling at how fiercely I had loved our home and how gently I had learned to let go. I smiled, feeling his presence in the soft morning light, in the sound of the waves, in the memories that would never fade. That day, I sat on a bench overlooking the beach and pulled out my journal. I began writing again, not to mourn, not to relive, but to celebrate the life we had created. I wrote about the laughter, the small victories, the quiet moments of love. I wrote about my daughter, how she had grown, and how she had taught me patience, understanding, and forgiveness. And as I wrote, I felt a weight lift from my heart. It occurred to me then that life is full of change. Homes are sold, people move, and time passes relentlessly. But love, memories, and the connections we nurture are never truly lost. They are carried within us, quietly, persistently, shaping who we are and who we become. And even when the people we care about make choices that hurt us, understanding and compassion allow us to carry on without bitterness. That evening, my daughter joined me for a walk along the shore. We didn't speak much, but it didn't matter. There was a quiet understanding between us, a bond strengthened by the trials we had faced together. Sometimes, the deepest connections are not formed in moments of comfort, but in the moments of challenge, when love is tested and emerges stronger. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I whispered a small prayer of gratitude for my family, for my memories, for the lessons learned, and for the love that endures, even when circumstances change. And I realized something beautiful. The house had been a vessel, but life, love, and memory are limitless. They cannot be sold or taken away. They live in us, in our hearts, in the stories we carry forward. I hope, if you've been listening to this story, you'll think of the people and places you love. Cherish them, not because they will last forever, but because the love you feel for them is eternal. Even when life changes, even when loss comes unexpectedly, the love, the lessons, and the memories remain. They are yours to hold, to share, and to pass on. And in that quiet reflection, I smiled. The beach house was gone, yes, but my heart was full. I had learned to let go, to forgive, and to embrace life with all its changes. And in that embrace, I found hope. So, wherever you are listening to this story right now, I want to ask you, have you ever faced a change you weren't ready for? Something that hurt, something you didn't understand at first? comment below and share your story, because maybe, just like me, you'll find that even through loss, life and love continue, and sometimes they bring unexpected beauty in their wake. Life will bring change, loss, and challenges. Homes, objects, even circumstances may leave us, but love, memories, and the bonds we nurture endure forever. Forgiveness and acceptance allow peace to grow, even in heartbreak.